Have you ever been yelled out of a client's office? I have. And here's the worst part. It was completely deserved. This is not a story about a bad design. It's a story about not knowing your client well enough and paying for it in public. Welcome to Design Unhinged. I'm Pat, a senior designer who learned the hard way that great ideas don't survive bad context. The most dangerous projects are the ones that feel smooth at the start. We had meetings, we ran a workshop, we defined the problem. The momentum felt really good. Everyone in the room seemed aligned. And that's where I made a classic mistake. We confused activity with alignment. We mistook forward motion for shared ownership. If things feel too easy early on, something important is probably missing. And I was about to find out. So what was the problem? The most important person was not in the room. The client had internal designers, a head of design, someone who actually owned the work, and would be accountable for it internally. They were not included, not out of malice, just out of assumptions. We were too excited and honestly too polite, so we kept on going forward without asking the hard question. Clients don't always know who needs to be involved. Designers cannot assume someone else has mapped the power structure. If you don't know who owns the product or the design, you don't know who you're designing for. Then it happened. The real owner showed up. The head of design saw work they hadn't influenced, approved, or defended. They were already under pressure internally, and suddenly they were being asked to react to something they did not control. They didn't review the concepts, they rejected everything, out loud, very loud. They called the ideas horrible. They said everything had been done wrong. They refused to pay for any of it. And here's the uncomfortable truth. They had all the reasons to be furious. I froze. I thanked them for their time. My manager and we left. I was in absolute shambles. This wasn't about design quality. It was about authority, trust, and timing. The design department hadn't been included. They were under fire and they needed to make an example. Not because the work was so bad, but because they had been sidelined in the process. Sometimes good ideas die when they land on the wrong desk. Design work can be brilliant and still get rejected if it bypasses ownership, ignores internal politics, or arrives at the wrong moment. Often design does not fail in Figma, it fails in the calendars. This experience rewired how I approach every project. Talent was not the issue. Effort wasn't the issue. Failure was the context. Knowing your client is not just about understanding the brief. It's understanding who holds the power, who carries the risk, who has to defend the work internally, who feels threatened by change, and what political landmines already exist. These aren't office politics. They're just a part of the job. So now, before I move forward on any project, I make sure I can answer these questions. Who actually owns this work? Who can approve it? Who can kill it? Who will have to defend it internally? Who was not invited into the meetings but should have been? What tensions already exist inside the client team? What happens if this work succeeds? And who loses control if it does? Being excited is not an excuse for skipping rigor. Being nice is not the same as being professional. So, the most expensive design mistakes are not bad ideas. They're misdirected ones. If you don't know who you're designing for, you don't control where your work ends up. Do your damn homework. Ask the uncomfortable questions early. It hurts a lot less than being yelled out of a client's office. If this episode saved you from learning this lesson the hard way, subscribe and drop a comment about the design mistake you want me to unpack next. Also, you can find a link to my Substack in the description. And as always, here on Design Unhinged, we don't pretend the work is clean. We learn where it actually breaks.